Hi everyone, I'm Chia. Welcome to Dragon and Unicorn. Today we're going to step into a magical story, Snow White. Did you know? This story has a beautiful princess, a talking magic mirror, and 7 adorable dwarfs. Are you ready? Let's go on an adventure together. And don't forget, after the story, there's a special theme song written just for Snow White waiting for you.
The origin of Snow White. The story of Snow White is one of the most famous fairy tales passed down through generations. Its origins can be traced back to the oral traditions of medieval Europe, with many versions of the story circulating across different cultures. The most well-known version comes from the Brothers Grimm, who recorded and published the tale in their Grimm's Fairy Tales in 1812. However, the story existed in various forms before this, with themes of jealousy, beauty, and innocence being central to its narrative. It has continued to inspire countless adaptations and retellings across books, films, and stage productions, becoming a timeless story of innocence triumphing over malice. Snow White. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a kind and beautiful queen. One winter's day, while she was sewing by a window framed with ebony wood, she pricked her finger, and 3 drops of blood fell onto the snow. As she gazed at the bright red drops against the pure white snow, she wished for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Not long after, the queen gave birth to a baby girl who had exactly these features. They named her Snow White. Sadly, the queen passed away soon after giving birth, and the king, seeking to ensure his daughter had a mother, remarried. The new queen was beautiful, but she was also cruel and vain. She possessed a magical mirror that could speak the truth, and every day she would ask it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And each day, the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." The queen was content, for she believed there was no one in the world more beautiful than she. However, Snow White grew up to become more beautiful with each passing day, and when she reached her adolescence, her beauty surpassed that of her stepmother. One day, when the queen asked her mirror the same question, the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true. But Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you." Consumed with jealousy, the queen's heart darkened. She could not bear to have anyone, even her stepdaughter, be more beautiful than her. The queen summoned a huntsman and commanded him to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. She demanded proof of Snow White's death, asking the huntsman to bring back her heart. The huntsman took Snow White deep into the forest, but when he raised his knife to strike, he found that he could not do it. Snow White, so innocent and pure, begged for her life with such sorrowful eyes that the huntsman's heart softened. He told her to run far away into the woods and never return. To satisfy the queen, the huntsman killed a wild boar and took its heart to the queen, who believed it belonged to Snow White. The 7 dwarfs. Snow White ran deeper into the forest, terrified and unsure of where to go. As dusk fell, she stumbled upon a small cottage nestled among the trees. Exhausted, she entered the house and found that everything inside was tiny and tidy. On the table were 7 small plates and 7 small cups, and upstairs were 7 small beds. Snow White, being hungry and tired, ate a little from each plate, drank from each cup, and lay down on one of the beds, falling into a deep sleep. That evening, the owners of the cottage, 7 dwarfs who worked in the mines, returned home. They were surprised to find their home in disarray and someone sleeping in one of their beds. When they saw the beautiful girl, they did not wake her, but instead allowed her to sleep through the night. The next morning, when Snow White awoke, she told them her story, and the dwarfs, feeling pity for her, offered her a place to stay. They warned her to be cautious and not let anyone into the house, as her stepmother would surely try to find her. The queen's deception. Meanwhile, the queen, still satisfied with the huntsman's deception, asked her mirror once again who the fairest in the land was. To her horror, the mirror responded, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true. But Snow White, beyond the mountains, with the 7 dwarfs, is 1,000 times fairer than you." The queen realized that Snow White was still alive and resolved to kill her herself. Disguising herself as an old peddler woman, she traveled to the dwarf's cottage and offered Snow White a beautiful lace bodice. Trusting the old woman, Snow White allowed her to lace it up, but the queen pulled it so tight that Snow White fainted. The queen left, believing she had killed her. When the dwarfs returned, they found Snow White unconscious and revived her by loosening the bodice. They warned her once again to be careful and not to open the door to strangers. The queen, upon returning to her mirror and hearing once more that Snow White was still the fairest, tried again. This time, she made a poisoned comb and disguised herself again. She visited Snow White, offering the comb as a gift. When Snow White used it, she fell into a deep unconsciousness. Again, the dwarfs returned just in time to remove the comb and save her. Furious, the queen devised her final plan. She created a poisoned apple, one that would put Snow White into a death-like sleep from which she could never be awakened. Disguised as a harmless old woman, she offered the apple to Snow White. Despite the dwarf's warnings, Snow White, thinking this woman was kind, took a bite. As soon as she did, she fell to the ground, lifeless. The prince's kiss. When the dwarfs returned home and found Snow White, they were heartbroken. Believing her to be dead, they laid her in a glass coffin in the forest, where all the creatures of the woods came to mourn her. For many days, they kept vigil by her side. One day, a prince, who had heard tales of Snow White's beauty, came to the forest and saw her lying in the coffin. Struck by her beauty, he asked the dwarfs if he could take her to his castle. The dwarfs agreed, but as the prince's servants carried the coffin, they stumbled, dislodging the piece of poisoned apple from Snow White's throat. She awoke as if from a deep sleep. The prince, overjoyed, asked Snow White to marry him, and she agreed. The wicked queen, upon hearing that Snow White was alive and soon to be wed, was consumed by her own rage and jealousy. In her fury, she destroyed her own magic mirror and fled the kingdom, never to be seen again. Snow White and the prince were married in a grand ceremony, and they lived happily ever after.
Wow, wasn't Snow White such an amazing story? I love the Seven Dwarfs the most. How about you? Thank you for listening to the story with me, Chia. If you enjoy Dragon and Unicorn, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up with your mom and dad. Next time, Ling Feng will take you on another magical adventure, so don't miss it. Now it's time to enjoy the Snow White theme song. Let's sing along together.
In the forest deep and wide, Snow White sings with birds beside. Seven dwarfs in a happy line, dancing till the stars align. Whistle and wander through the trees, feel the magic on the breeze. Clap your hands and take a flight, chase the sun with Snow White. Apple red and smile so sweet, watch your step, the world's a treat. Dreams will sparkle big and small, love's the fairest gift of all. Mirror whispers, sky so blue, believe in dreams, they'll come true. Brave and kind, she takes the lead, with a heart that's all you need. Whistle and wander through the trees, feel the magic on the breeze. Clap your hands and take a flight, the sun with Snow White. Castles high and mountains bold, fairy tales are stories told. So sing along, your voice is bright, join the song with Snow White.